What's really going on, everyone? Back again with another episode. Before we get into all of the latest news and notes, be sure to follow us wherever you have a social media platform. That is at WRGO Pod on X, TikTok, and Instagram. Be sure to like, listen, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to like and especially comment on YouTube where you can see our lovely faces in video form, along with some brand new content that we are continuing to roll out. We've had a great month across all of our streaming platforms. So thank you all, especially Rep Inga Willis, who joined us for our last episode, Henry and Mackenzie. Summertime. How are you guys?
Doing good. Trying to stay cool. Trying to stay cool.
No, but for real, trying to stay cool. You know it's humid down here in Georgia. Like you walk outside, you just melt, bro. Like it's
Ridiculous.
crazy.
I actually think, as someone who has been to both DC or who lives in DC and has been to New York, Henry, I would actually think you can't tell me that New York is not hotter than there. What
I
I
don't
experienced,
know, bro.
what I
I don't.
No, one
experienced,
time, one
I think it
literally
is.
the weather was the same amount of degrees wise that it was in Houston. Like literally same. It
It's
was so
actually ridiculous.
I don't know. I used to go to New York in the summertime, like often, with my auntie. That's why I'd be saying I'm from 129. But anyway, point. I felt like New York summers were hot, but Georgia was just different. Like that's
and
just,
There's
today the
nothing,
humidity has been crazy
yeah.
too.
And
but
there's
that's what
nothing
I'm
worse
saying.
than the sun on a New York street. Just,
And it
or,
glares back at you.
yeah,
That's what happens
just,
here in Georgia. Like you step on the asphalt, you feel like it's smoke.
Mm.
It
What's
be
the
hot.
temperature there? What was the temperature there today?
Yeah, I ain't checked the temperature. Hold on.
It was like high 80s.
it was like 90, then it became a monsoon, and then it got hot again, and now it's like lightning outside
Yeah,
as
it's
we are
raining
currently
here
recording. It's
too.
Yeah,
doing everything, but
it's been like raining real hard, and then 5 minutes later, it's hot as
yeah,
freak.
the
Uh,
rapture.
it's like it's raining now and it's 78 degrees. The high was 87.
The high was 87. Let's do a quick check real quick. Literally, it's 78 degrees and the high today was 92.
That's unbearable.
Oh, New York is hotter.
That's
Clap hands.
crazy, actually.
Oh, good job. Good job, New York.
No, that's crazy.
Chris Love trying to be the best at
No,
everything.
that's
Love
not
that. I
the
love that. I
best.
love that bravado. I
That's
love that.
literally not even the best. That's a problem. That is a
Oh, it is.
direct issue and problem with Mother Nature
Talk
right now.
about this current administration and how they just snatching funds from stuff like global warming and all of the things.
We
It's
can
crazy.
we can't exactly get into that, but first, I think we want to talk about the thing that has, I feel like, dominated our own text thread the most, and that's the current situation that is going on with Iran. So to back everyone up, I'm sure you've probably seen a lot on Twitter, Instagram, TV, wherever you get your news. So just to level set kind of how we got here. So in early June, Israel carried out a large-scale airstrike attack on several of Iranian's nuclear site targets. Israel officials also stated that the operation was aimed at disrupting Iran's uranium enrichment capabilities, which they said pose an imminent threat. In the process, they actually killed some of Iran's top military leaders, which was pretty big, obviously, for Iran. Throughout this process, then Iran almost immediately launched a series of missile and drone strike attacks targeting Israeli military sites and infrastructure. They actually had a couple of their missiles actually hit in Tel Aviv. Most of them were intercepted in the air. This all kind of came to a head when Trump kind of gave them a 2 week window of trying to figure this out. And then midway through, he said, you know what? Whatever. And then a couple of weeks ago, he actually decided to bomb some three of Iran's nuclear targets, which essentially are in large mountainous caves. That essentially brought the temperature to a new level, which I think now we all are. So far, since that, nothing has kind of concrete happened. Iran has vowed to respond. They kind of told the U.S. that they were going to send some missiles to a airbase in Qatar, but those were all intercepted because the U.S. had kind of a heads up. It was just kind of largely just for show. Now we're here, and there seems to be a lot of questions overall. But what is your all's kind of understanding of the situation? Because I think for all of it, for me, I was like, "Huh? How did we get here?"
This you're crazy, bruh. like news can or can't be fake, but I did read it from like a decently reliable source saying that like Obama got us in a nuclear deal with Iran when he was in
Hmm.
office, and
Yep.
then last time Trump was in office, he pulled us out of this deal,
Which
and
we
now
still are out. Hmm.
right. So essentially, he's doing all of this to basically, at some point, take credit for him like taking charge of or reign over all the nuclear weapons and getting us in this agreement with Iran. And I'm like, bro, so you really gonna start a war just to like do that?
Breaking up a fight that you started.
Literally Trump to a T, bro. And when I read all of that, I'm like, what? So yeah, that's how I feel. I'm just like this, like that's the most egotistical, narcissistic, whatever other words I can come up with in this moment to describe a just arrogant, ignorant person who's literally he's just out for vengeance, just to like he want his face carved on Mount Rushmore type stuff. Like,
Is that real? I
yes,
saw
I think I
that,
think
but
he
oh my
I think he wants a
God.
Nobel Peace Prize so bad. I think he really wants a Nobel Peace Prize,
he's
largely
just
because
pushing.
Obama got one.
He's pushing to try to be this great president. And y'all seen he put like it was like a dictatorship thumbs up sign
Yeah,
and he
No,
like
I didn't see that. What?
he's really pushing this. He's saving the world and all like I don't it's mind blowing. But to specifically talk about this Iran stuff is stupid to put us American citizens at risk at harm's way because of pride and ego.
And
And
that was my only focus. I literally was just like, oh my gosh, like, are we in danger? Are we still in danger? Are we going to be in danger? Like, what does this even mean? But I know that they keep reporting that this doesn't mean war, or like they kept saying, like, this, like, trying to make it seem like this doesn't mean that they're going to retaliate. But I'm just kind of like, in what world would you not retaliate against something like that? And
I
I just
agree, and
don't
I
want it to
yeah.
be at the expense of I mean, this might be the selfish, yeah, literally. But I will say is that the selfish American, like we go over to countries and disrupt their ecosystem, take people's lives. But yeah, that's literally my only main focus is what does that mean for us?
And at least let me ask you a question because I think in this instance, I think even the difference is like I think Mackenzie, you're spot on. Like the U.S. kind of just this is kind of what we do. It's just kind of like, hey, we just gonna kind of muck around over there and figure some stuff out. At least they've lied. And then granted, the U.S. has lied about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction, which they didn't. At least they put that out there. In this case, we don't even really. They're saying it's their nuclear program, but there's no like tangible threat that like no, actually we know they had it. It's like no, they're building one, and it's like there's not that actual. No one I think can actually even like describe why we're here, and I think that's where like Trump has failed. That's where frankly the Israeli government and Benjamin Netanyahu have failed, who I actually think deserve a lot more kind of like focus on this, and that them as a government just keep on perpetuating conflict after conflict after conflict, whether it's with Iran and then where we take Palestine and Gaza. It's like you're just amplifying conflict and no one really even knows A, why you're doing it, but B, like what's the next step? Like, what's next? And I think that's
have a
where,
mind going because
yeah.
prior to you bringing up that point, which I would love to go into,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to like, how do we even exist in a world that is at war? But like, that's an everyday thing almost. But like, to the point of like, why and what and all the things, like, I just told you I got this from a decently reliable source. I was talking to my line brother, and like, he's kind of not kind of he's getting PhD. So like he's smart and into politics. I'm like culturally into politics. So we talked about it and he gives me all this background as Noah does. Like it was kind of like an episode of the podcast for real. So uh he give me all this background, and I'm just kind of sitting there like what, like if you put all of these things together, because mind you, when Obama was in office, I wasn't really paying attention, don't really know too much. The most I know about nuclear weapons was when they was about to blow up Cuba. Like, what was that?
Cuban
That was
Missile
a
Crisis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
we're
that
talking
was a
60s
while
at this
ago.
point.
That's the
Kenzie
most
said
I know
last.
about nuclear weapons because I sound like Maya off of Love Island. Fix my words, but the most I know about nuclear weapons is that in real time, in history class, or even when I was in college, we weren't talking. Noah, maybe you know more than me because you took a lot of political science classes, but like nuclear weapons were not like just talked about. So for this to now be the reason they're over there, because like you said, and what I know about the 2000s in war, they were talking about oil. So like this is now some type of tool or thing that could propagate a better economy to some degree. It's a resource. That's the word I was looking for. That could propagate the
Yeah,
economy. But like, how is Iran using it to our or the world's destruction to the point you were making? And then like to the point of America always being the guys to go over there and bully people like, well, not bully, like
that's I'm not
whatever
correcting
the
you.
case may be. So for America to do that, it's like, well, like, should they do this if we don't really know what Iran is doing? And, they have these potential weapons that could blow up people off the surface. If they drop a nuclear weapon in America, we're gone. The face of America is wiped off the planet. So, like,
I mean, the only countries that have nuclear weapons are us, China, Russia, and North Korea. And I think what, granted, I don't necessarily always agree with this assumption, but I think it's a valid point, is that it's both a act of force, but also an act to get someone else to hold up. And I think that's what kind of has been discussed throughout this entire time, but also it's been the US and Israel and other, and this is also like a very like imperialistic country problem, is that we continue to kind of direct these countries and then expect them to kind of figure it out on themselves. It's like, no, you put your thumb on the scale. This is what this is now. And you can't then expect to interfere with elections, interfere with who's leading a country, and then all of a sudden expect the day after to be fine. It's like, no, you have to be in this for the long haul. And I think that to me is the thing that we haven't really figured out. It's what Israel hasn't figured out. Literally today, I'm reading this right now on Al Jazeera. Israel bombs Gaza aid sites, cafe, and school, killing 95 Palestinians. What purpose does that serve?
no, but
And if you're going to keep inflicting pain on these people, that means that you have to have a plan to be involved after you stop bombing. But you like I just and I think that's but because I'll let you go ahead, but I think that's what's most concerning here is that it seems like we're just acting with no actual like what does this look like a week from now, a month from now? Or to your point, Mackenzie, most importantly, what if Iran's just like, no, fuck this.
Yeah.
Like we want
I
smoke
feel
too.
like I feel
Like
like
we're not
though,
we're not
like
gonna roll over.
with them bombing the Palestinians, though, and the idea of thinking that they should come up with a plan, they should. But honestly, the way that they're moving, I can only think that they're trying to completely
They're
wipe
too
them
dug in.
out. I don't think that there is a thought to really kind of incorporate them into society. And the
Mm-mm.
honestly, the only thing I could think of is like Black people who were dragged here,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no, and then after, especially coming off of Juneteenth, after Blacks were freed, there still was nothing for us to do. We kind of had to make it ourselves and kind of like fold ourselves into society. So I don't think that there's a plan because I don't think that they care to have a plan for Palestinians.
I'm glad you said all of that because, like, for me, I was gonna say that when I was speaking earlier. What I do know from world history and the things about, institutions and government powers going and essentially colonizing or destructuring people's government is they just destroy it, take like the goods that benefit them back to their homeland. If they want to build and develop the land, they might, but that's definitely going to take some years and to the point of like understanding it in our terms, like that's black people coming to America and figuring out slavery, rebelling, and then sharecropping, and then you go through the 60s where we're gaining some type of wealth, and now we're in this like dissociated age of like percentages of us existing in certain places. Now you have classism on top of racism. So like these societies will build or be rebuilt, but it's still going to be the same type of oppression and prejudice and all of the things. So that's when it does become a like
It's a
world
vicious
leaders.
circle.
Yeah, like Because like that's also what's in the back of my mind too. Trump isn't really cool with. He took us out of NATO, right?
And no, we're still in it, but we're not like
We not cool with our allies how we need to be cool with our
no,
allies. We go to
no,
war.
no.
So, from my understanding, with that, we don't need to be going to war with Trump in office because that means our homeboys like China, him and China is supposed to be one of our like we cool but we not cool type of allies, right?
Yeah, so
So
we're gonna get to the
with
top of the hill
him
and look back, ain't nobody
embarking,
with us.
my bad, go ahead.
No, I said we go to your point, we gonna get in a fight and realize that we ain't got our homies backing us up.
That's all I'm getting to. So with all of that being said, it's like what is he to the plan of America and sustaining us? What is his point or plan outside of pride and ego? If in case you know that our world powers aren't, you know,
They
at the
ain't there.
best with us, and then like our military, like we have the world's best military, but like my brother active duty right now. We don't need that pressure. We don't need that pressure, my boy. Like, calm down. Calm
I
down.
mean, I think that his move would be to like show the world of the American muscle or whatever, especially with the whole tariffs and all this stuff going on. I feel like it's just the strategy would probably just be to show other countries that you kind of either have to get with us or get lost. Like I'm not really going to bend the knee like previous leaders might have
So
to
to
get
that
things done.
point, though, to that point, and Noah, you can go because I think I'm talking a lot, but like to that point, if you to all of what I just explained, if you want to prove your muscle, you need to know how strong your muscle is. Like I'm not gonna go in the gym and pick up 250 and try because I like my muscles ain't there. I gotta work up to that, right? So understanding where my muscle strength is, I'm not gonna go to war when I don't have my backup.
But let's be clear, he didn't do it too, as you said, like the other world superpowers, though. He also knew who he could do it
Yeah,
with. Like
he
that,
can try
you
every
know who to
time
boot.
he in office. He tried China with the
but
tariff.
he didn't try China
He
like
ain't
how
trying with this.
bad.
He wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
Um, Before we close, I do think it's worth, I think, highlighting at least like what I think is a big, I think this is a media problem. And I think we're actually not like talking about how actually like the actions that they're doing are actually not kind of fostering this quote unquote peace that I think everybody claims that they want. Like if you live in Gaza, why would you be peaceful against people who bomb every neighborhood that you know? And I think it's like that actual mindset of like, what does that actually look like in terms of like you want peace by killing people, but the people who survive are only going to be hell bent on making sure that they can do the same to you down the road. So it's like to your point, Henry, it's just like it's a never ending cycle, and at some point somebody's got to be like, hold on, what are we doing? It's not working. Another thing to flag, since it's been a busy news week, this has been exhausting. Legislation is currently making its way through the United States Senate. It's casually called Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, which might be the dumbest name that I've ever heard in all of my time working in politics, to Mackenzie's shock, in part laughter. The bill is over 900 pages long. It just passed in the Senate on party lines, with two Republicans voting against it, but it looks all set to pass. Here is a little bit of the winners and losers in the bill. So, one winner is going to be corporations. The legislation would make a permanent trillions of dollars of corporate tax cuts that were once enacted in 2017 that were expanded for other tax breaks. That includes permanently lowering the corporate tax rate to 21 from 35%. One loser is going to be people like us in the younger generation. The tax cut would add around 3 trillion over the next decade to the national debt. That means it would require us to borrow more money and pay more in interest payments, which eventually, if these things like tariffs come in, is going to make it actually harder for us to, pay our bills. But, us three have to pay our bills with the United States government, 50-50 there. Um, High income households are going to be another big winner. The bill would greatly expand the amount of state and local taxes are able to deduct from their taxes, uh, with the current cap being 10,000 up to 40,000. The biggest beneficiaries of the change would be households making 200 to $500,000 a year. And those that own property are likely to benefit because they pay more in property taxes. It is worth noting that a lot of folks, I think they said up to 12 million people, are at risk of losing their health care through Medicaid. There, I think, were over 750 million in proposed cuts that will likely go through to programs like SNAP, which is essentially food benefits and food insecurity. Um, this story has kind of fallen under the radar with all of the Iran stuff, but um, is there anything that you all, I think, are taking from this, or to what I'm gonna piggyback on Mackenzie and kind of pick on her? Um, do Democrats need to be somehow figuring out a way to make a lot more noise about this? There's a lot of other stories with Iran, all these other things, but this seems to be kind of the thing that we should all be screaming from the rooftop about. But I don't know. You're all use all thoughts.
So who benefits from this? Like I didn't, other than like I'm just
Rich
confused by
people,
the.
rich people, rich
So wait, when
people.
you said the explain the household part, what
So
does that even
essentially, if you
mean?
are a property owner, you get to deduct more in kind of you get to claim more deductions on your taxes up from 40.
Mm.
It used to be they were capped you at deducting up to 10,000. Now you can get up to 40. And there are going to be kind of tax cuts, quote unquote, for everyone. However, most of those tax cuts, I think they said 60% of the tax cuts will go to those earners in the top 28th percentile of US earnings. So essentially, as you can imagine, rich people are getting more on their taxes. People like us or people lower income, they might get a little bit, but someone who's making $40,000 getting 100 off their taxes is going to be a lot different than someone making a million getting 50,000. So essentially, they're just trading, they're switching the pie to that the smallest amount get the most, and the people at the bottom either gets up a taken away in terms of Medicaid and food benefits. They'll get a small little tax break, but it's not going to be enough to like mean anything or supplement any other thing in the
Then
grand
I
scheme of
think
things.
the big thing is the Medicaid cut.
That was the
It's
main
huge,
thing I just
huge.
didn't understand the household part. But yes, the Medicaid. Oh my goodness.
Like, it's just like in the overarching term, the same people continue to benefit, and I guess that's where I get confused at like, well, I'm not confused, but it's frustrating that we don't have more sensible people in this day and age that aren't just like real, like they're draining our pockets in every which way. And we can't, like, we're living on top of each other. We can't afford to buy groceries. We can't afford to do this. You continue to get this debt, and it's like the wealthy does get wealthy. The planet continues to get destroyed. There's no efforts to like balance this out on a scale of okay, everybody can eat. And I think that's what is the most egregious about Republicans, because their whole like ideology is like, everybody should get it out the mud. There should be no hell. But like a lot of them come from foundational situations that allow them to propel themselves in different ways. That on the flip side, I think because the Democratic Party is so diverse and deal with so many like socioeconomic, racial identity, so many issues, it's hard to even like grapple up a plan, which we've talked about. It's good to hear that two Republicans voted against it, but it's just like, I don't know. And then in real time, like you said, permanent tax cuts. So like, how does that
So
even?
you read my mind because I really wanted to read it because Mackenzie got me thinking. So I found a better way to explain this just now. Wealthier taxpayers are appear set to receive more benefits from this bill, according to Yale. Taxpayers in the lowest quintile, so lowest 25% bracket, will see a 2.5 decrease in their income because of the taxes. So they're basically going to lose money on the whole in a year. Then we go down a little bit, and now it says the highest earners, so basically top 25% earners, their incomes will grow by 2.4. So essentially, if you have someone who's not making a lot lose 2.5% of their income, that's a pretty big hit, even though it's a small number. But if you're making $1 million and you see your income raised by 2.4, that's a lot of money at that point. So essentially, they're just cutting from the poor, giving more to the rich, and they're supplementing it by cutting stuff that the poor need in the same time or lower income folks. Um, Mackenzie, I want to ask you a question. Is this actually a thing that people like Cory Booker and other Democrats should be doing 24-hour speeches about? Is this a thing that, or because I feel like we haven't even
I
talked
mean, at
about,
this
I haven't
point,
seen
once
anybody
it's
doing anything. But
I don't even know at this point though, after it's already passed, it's just
I mean,
kind of
yes, yeah.
it's kind of like I don't know what they can do. I mean, other than continue to talk about it, and continue to, I think that that honestly goes into like the New York City mayor race and just
Hmm.
like being front runners and really talking about it. But I will say this, the thing about Republicans that just irritates me this much about like bills like that, it's like this whole idea, it's almost like a half thought. Like it's like we're gonna cut SNAP benefits, but we're also not going to replace it with like supermarkets or something for these people to eat. So then they're going to like starve and then be in the streets, and then we're mad that they're in the streets. Like it's just like a circle of like nonsense that I'm like, this isn't going to rid the problem. Like most conservatives that I feel like I've ever interviewed or talked to, they always talk about, like you said, Henry, getting it by yourself, getting it out the mud, and people take advantage of the system, which is ignorant because everybody takes advantage of the system. It like the higher ups are taking advantage of the system, and so
They
what?
take these tax benefits, they take advantage of it the
Yeah.
most.
So it's but my thing is like with the SNAP benefits and like food and living in food impoverished neighborhoods, it's like literally speaking of my neighborhood, granted, I can walk to a couple blocks to the next one, but the grocery store here closed. So like if you're not gonna replace it, then that means that I have no other options here. So then if I start like only eating at bat, I don't even want to go into an analogy. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. But
No,
it's
No,
just like
no,
that's exactly what
yeah,
a food desert is.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then
But I
and
also
then
think,
and then there's going to be a statistic from Harvard Review saying that this neighborhood is has high diabetes and high sugar intake, high cholesterol. But it's
I wonder
like
why.
and then you wonder why, and then it's like and then those are all distractions to distract you from the main point that this party and this group of people have decided to take food away from X, Y, and Z so that the top 2%, because then their logic is that when the rich people get it, which is also
Trickles
crazy
down.
because yeah, yeah. And also the thing is now this isn't really like market research, but every time I watch like YouTube videos that have those type of conversations with rich people talking about tax, this is not all rich people, but I will say the few people that be on there do say that they do not mind getting taxed a little bit more if it means going, or they
Yeah,
do not
right. Yeah,
mind paying more if they know their main thing is I need to know that it's going to something that is real and tangible, which is some critique that they've had of the Democratic Party. But it's just it doesn't make sense to me because especially when you see as many times of people like documented that are rich and wealthy and of that percent that are openly saying that they are okay with being taxed a little bit more as long as they know that their money is going to, this is just I don't know,
yeah. I mean, it's
safe
like
fix.
it's like the same thing with like what Republicans do, and you made like the perfect comparison, Mackenzie. Like the same thing that Republicans do on like abortion. Like we're going to take away your abortion, and we're not going to fund healthcare. It's like so. Where's my outlet? Like, what am I now supposed to do if you're not funding rural clinics, if you're not funding for actual like maternity care in my
Yeah.
state? I'm now just ass out. And I think to your point, that whole trickle down thing has never worked. Where it's like if a rich person gets 2% back on their income, you know what they're doing? They're probably buying something that doesn't actually benefit the community that they live in. But if you give the single father or if you give the family $200, you know where they're putting that money in? The grocery store. They're putting that money at the local store. They're putting that money to get some shoes for the kid or any
A
other
family vacation to support a local economy to go
another
down to
I'm
business.
about
Florida
to
and
say,
take your kids to
Yeah,
Disneyland. Like,
right.
COVID
Like,
proved that though. I think COVID proved if you give
mhm,
people a little bit of money, they
they'll
help
spend
you.
it. They'll
So
boost the
depends
economy.
on how you look at it, right? Because then you have the other people who think that those stimulus checks are have put us in the way why the market
Yeah,
is how it is
yeah.
now and
Which
all
it
of
did.
these
Which it
things.
did.
true. That was because deficiencies and because people like stores couldn't get the resources they
I mean,
need
you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have to explain that to me, but that's how conservatives literally think. That's why they think
But
like
But that's where so also that's the most uneducated party in my or is that just a thing I made up in my head?
no, and I think this is, I think the broader conversation is that like one, I love the point that you both hit at was that you all were basically saying like it's a system thing, but that also like Republicans and Democrats do this too because they're rich too. Like they're also telling you to kind of do something that they're not actively doing, where like they're well aware that the system picks winners and losers and that they are just a part of the winning group every single time. But then they're going to say, well, actually, you don't need us to be a winner and loser, even though that's exactly I Elon Musk. I use tax incentives to help get Tesla funded. I use tax incentives in Maryland to help put Tesla EVs everywhere. That's a government program that is directly helping his business. But for you, individual, you don't need my help. And it's like the fallacy of that. But also, and this is where I think Republicans get it wrong and right, their voters are hurt by this too. And they actually don't think they are. And that I think is actually the most maddening part is that Democrats aren't the only one using food stamps. Like if you look at the most food insecure states, it's all states that line the South that are all voting Republican. Every single presidential election all have Republican governors. Republicans are getting hurt by this, but they're not actually able, whether it's their media ecosystem, the things that they're consuming, not actually to say, hey, wait a minute, why does Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana have the highest rates of diabetes, all these other things? It's because I'm not getting Medicaid, Medicare, and I don't have SNAP. Congress, what are you doing? They're not actually like assuming any next logical thought to that, and that their elected officials are actually making their lives worse. And I think Republicans are smart and they're getting away with it clearly, but it's also like, how do you inform someone of something that they're actively participating in that's hurting them? I don't know how to do that.
Come to New York City. Why are the elder Black people waiting in line for Eric Adams?
We'll get to that.
That I think that all translate perfectly because that like it becomes that's the how we've kind of been talking through a history lesson if you like really think about it
Mhm.
in real time and application from war to bills and progressing in society to what we're talking about now. Like, bro, like they don't think about these. They when I say they, I'm talking or speaking toward the leaders, the shift, like the decision makers in our economy, in our society, those people, right? We know that like a certain, it's like six entities in big media. Netflix is fighting to become the seventh.
I think
So
they are now.
when they probably are with
Mhm.
the studios. A point, if you think about how most people, especially in this day and age, when we look at adult reading efficiencies and all these things, how many people are actually comprehending like things we push at? So like, how we're talking about these deep nuanced topics of like just war and propaganda and bills and legislation, and how you just had to kind of explain that bill to me and Mackenzie, and we're of a certain percent. We had to take that in from you, our podcast. How many people get to delve into that information and actively understand it? So with
Everybody who has a phone and access to social media.
so
The
that
New
like
York Times put it
like
like
McKinsey.
like no, I know what you're trying to say. Like, and
Yeah,
I want to acknowledge that, but like we also have to acknowledge the access people do have to information. Like
which is more
everything
now than
else,
ever.
yeah, everything else in the list was a bit confusing, but if I am a part of SNAP and Medicaid and I read that line on the New York Times social media, Instagram free public page, I
Or
understood
or
that I would
or
naturally be impacted by that.
or you didn't read the line, your benefits just got cut.
Yeah.
Like, your
Or
benefit,
like
you didn't have to
even
read
the
it, you
same thing on the
experienced it. You experienced
yeah, experience that. And then also even what he ran on about like the deportations and stuff, like that was clear. So like now fast forward, if you saying you didn't understand, like that's on you. That's on you.
I agree.
So we do understand that information is pushed through certain funnels that like you have access to all this information, but if you don't seek said information, you're not going to obtain said information. We know this. We know how algorithms work. So with understanding this, like I'm not giving anyone that benefit of the doubt because I agree with you. You have the tools, you're just not using them in the most
Or people don't know how to use them. They have a hammer, but
right.
don't know how to
That
swing it.
thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't
Actually,
know
and it's
how
also I
to
take
use
that
the
back because
tool.
I assume that this person would be following the New York Times. This person is probably listening to the podcast and wild information.
But that's also
Um,
why I use the example of like them just not having it anymore. That's like sometimes you don't need to like hand someone an article. You can just be like, oh wait, I can't
But
claim
if
my
you don't
SNAP
have the
benefits at
benefits
Safeway
anymore,
anymore.
isn't it kind of too late?
I mean,
Hmm.
but then, like, why are you not asking the question of like, how did this happen? A thing that I rely on every single day got just taken away from me, and I'm
Honestly,
not here to raise
it
hell
goes
about
back
it.
to our conversation with Inga
It does.
Willis.
It does. It does. It
Honestly,
does. It does.
when you talk about rely, like knowing where and how and who and all the things of obtaining information, especially when it pertains to my day-to-day life and access and all of those things, which I think greatly transitions into like the New York mayor, because that is the person that's presiding over the city and the city budget and creating some of these food deserts that Mackenzie maybe spoke about. So like Noah's going to transition us into that topic.
That is what we call an award-winning transition right there. Henry Wood, CNN. All right, so boom. So if you have slept under a rock recently, one of the biggest things in this year's politics to me has been the New York City mayoral race. If you have lived under a rock, New York's current mayor Eric Adams, who was indicted for basically selling his soul to Turkey, getting free flights and whatnot to Istanbul. He is dropped out of the Democratic Party and is now going to run as an independent. Last Tuesday, Zohran Mamdani, who identifies himself as a Democratic Socialist, he is a member of the state assembly. He won the primary with 43% of the first choice vote, beating out former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was kind of what some people would have thought would have been in line to win the presidency at some point, but he resigned in a scandal for being a creep and basically sexually harassing over 12 women. So he decided to rerun. Essentially, in the voting, Mamdani won, carrying heavily diverse areas, Brooklyn, Queens, which is where he grew up and where he currently represents. At 33, Mamdani would be New York City's first Muslim and first Indian American mayor. His campaign emphasized free public transit, childcare, rent freezes, grocery subsidies funded by taxes on wealthier individuals. He had endorsements from progressive leaders like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, other folks within New York, the Working Families Party. He had what I will actually say, just for me personally, I think he had one of the best campaigns that I've actually ever seen in maybe like the last 3 or 5 years. But I'll let Mackenzie you talk about that. But I think he was actually very understanding of like how to capture attention and how to actually capture that attention by having people both know him, but also know like what he wants to do. And I think that actually is where I think people are like, oh my God, he's like possibly a Muslim mayor of New York without realizing like, no, he's actually really smart in what he's doing. But as the resident New Yorker of our crew, say more.
Yeah, I would say there was one commercial that stood out to me. It was just like him in the street. I don't know. He just got social
Mm-hmm.
media. He got
Mm-hmm.
the like Gen Z millennial-esque like vibe. Like he just got it. And I think that the main thing that I personally latched onto, because I'm not gonna lie, and I please Black people do not disregard me for this, but I really was behind Cuomo before him, only because I hate Eric Adams so
You
much.
wanted anybody to beat him.
Anybody but him,
That's how
because
much
he
you that's how
like
much you hate Eric
literally,
Adams. You
I
Because I was
literally
gonna say y'all have some bad options.
and that was also the thing. Like
yeah.
it was bad
You're
options,
you're
but
not the only one who
anyways.
told me that from New York. I will give you that.
Yeah, like just get him out of here. But anyways, the thing about Cuomo, obviously outside of all the scandal or whatever, when he talked and what a lot of people have been running on, and it kind of to me put it on his head because he started talking about building more affordable housing. And we've
Yes.
talked about affordable housing on the podcast, and a lot of people always run on that. But Madami, am I saying that
Mom
right?
Donnie.
Mom
Mom Donnie. Oh,
Mom Donnie.
just like
Welcome
Cuomo
to
fucking
my
their
Sorry,
soul
you
world,
too.
have my
Mackenzie.
vote. You have my vote. But
Welcome to
okay, so
my world.
but what I really liked about him was he talked about the rent freezes because when you talk
Mhm.
about building the affordable housing, I feel like it's just become such a buzzword that it's like as a person who did get the NYC lottery, you have to jump through so many hoops. You have to do so many things. And affordable housing, it's like, who really gets access to the affordable housing? And then affordable is even a loose word at this point because affordable really just mean a discount apartment, but it's still very expensive. It's not really like what does that mean? I think him leading with like a rent freeze, he was talking about the neighborhood ran
Yeah.
grocery
Hmm.
stores. And just stuff like that. Now, granted, I don't know how much he can actually do, like as a
Yeah.
mayor, like what are
Neither do
these
I.
the free public transit. And he was talking about specifically the bus, which I think is just like it makes sense. It's not a complete full, like, we're gonna do free MTA or like,
Hmm.
when people run, he originally was running on like defund the police. He kind of got rid of that rhetoric when he
Yeah.
ran. Um, so I feel like he is trying to meet people in the middle as the with the moderate being a moderate and like trying to meet people where they're at. But another thing that I liked about even after he won, I think last weekend there was this big Haitian concert and he at the Barclay Center and he came on stage and he's like spoken Creole to them. And then what I really loved at the end of his little speech, he said, we're trying to give New Yorkers freedom the way that Haitians showed us before. And then he started talking about like ICE and stuff like that. And also another thing about him
Oh,
showing
he's
there,
coming in
he's
hot.
coming in
Yeah.
hot, but I think, and it's so intentional because
It's authentic.
yeah, and showing
It's
up at the
authentic.
concert, specifically talking to Haitians, like, and it's so crazy that I even say this, but like, if you look at the news, mass media, and the ICE deportations, you only see like brown people or Mexican people or Spanish people. They are
Hmm.
coming to Flatbush. They are coming to Black communities
Yeah.
and like taking
Yeah.
people. So for him to even come there and acknowledge that this isn't just something that's happening to the lighter skinned people, that you are also a
It'll
part
hit
of
you
the
too.
story. I also see you, I also resonate with your story. And then even just saying the freedom, I just feel like he's just able to speak to like a lot of people without feeling like he's speaking to no one.
Yeah, what I liked about him most, I think, is that he's tampered down, I think, some of like his like more out there stuff.
Yeah.
But I even think on some of his out there stuff, I think he's very like, no, I meant that. Like, if you think that this housing crisis is not a crisis that requires a really big solution, then like you don't understand the problem. And he said that at one of the debates. And I was like, actually, I really love that answer of like, if you think that we're going to solve this with like little tweaks, he's like, that's not, you actually don't live the problem. And
Hmm.
I think that he said that whether it was like public transportation, whether it was with housing, health, education, he's like, look, yes, this idea sounds crazy, but like, what's the point of getting in here and just like trying to be like cool and tame about this? He's like, if you
Yeah.
actually had these problems, you don't require a little tweak because we've tried that. And I think he
Hmm.
gave really interesting answers about like, yeah, I'm gonna like take a really bold step because like, isn't that what this situation demands? And he would usually like give an example of like, if I'm this person, they don't have time to wait. I don't have the ability to like suggest little things. I actually think like more Democrats need to see that of like, it's
Absolutely.
okay to be really progressive as long as you are like understanding of like the risk, but also understanding of who benefits from it. And I think Mamdani did a really good job of like, hey, I'm going to throw this free transportation out there. I'm not even going to get distracted by you saying how this is a bad idea. I'm going to show you how this impacts people for the better. And you can't disagree with me on that because you know that that's true. And you don't want to be caught in the place of disagreeing with me that that kids need to get to school free. Like, it's a
Hmm.
great, it's rhetorically, it's a great place to be in of just like, no, I believe this. And like, I'll take the hit, I'll take the risk. And I think more Democrats, whether it's with like student loans, like have a big idea, but just don't worry about the downside. Worry about who benefits from it.
Yeah.
That's what I think he did really, really well on the campaign. And I think more
Yeah.
people need to take that playbook for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely also think that he like even on debates or like I was watching an MSNBC clip and he was talking about the reporter was trying to push back and say that like people are moving out or like if you raise
Hmm.
taxes and do these things people are moving out. And he pushed back people are moving to Jersey that also has high taxes and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
what really resonated with him, I feel like it's been a long time since we've had a leader, at least since I've been here, that I feel like is still a New Yorker that's like on the ground, like still takes
understands.
the train, understands, like isn't too far removed. Because even I feel like, I mean, de Blasio was He's older and he had money. Like maybe he took the train here and there, but like I don't think rent and him getting a rent controlled apartment was top of his
Hmm.
mind like it is for people who are really trying to move here or like come up, even buying a home. And the thing about it, it's like before we even talk about helping New Yorkers buy a home, let's just get the rent under control. And the fact that
Let's
he's
get
like
to the
spending,
31st. Yeah.
yeah, like let's just get that under control first. Um, so
And I
yeah,
and I and I do
really
love
good.
that because he had one answer, and we can go to the next thing. But he had an answer about something where he was like, I don't think, and he hit on like people on the stage. He was like, I don't think you will have an understanding of like how the price of like everything every day just weighs on you. He's like, you all do not understand how like you just buying something that seems so small, that seems like it's two, three, $4 more than it should be. That combined with doing it again the next day and again the next day, you constantly feel like you're being squeezed. And he's like, that's the thing that like we need to figure out. And I'm like, that's not even like describing like a solution. That's just understanding the problem. And I
Yes.
think increasingly we don't have enough people to even like understand that, which I feel like, damn, that how much is that? How much in carton of eggs? Jesus.
Hmm.
Damn, how much is gas? Like that is a really good way of just, I think, understanding the problem of like people feel like they have no room, and that leads people to desperate solutions for themselves. I think he understands that at least.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that really does need to be an example to like other Democrats too, especially when we talk about what would it be, 2028? Like
mhm.
understanding the problem. Like
Yeah.
stop choosing these
Hmm.
topics that are buzzer words that you think are just like, because I feel like I don't even know how you could stop this, but once somebody gets to even close to running for presidency, they are completely probably out of touch about from what's really going on the ground. But like that's one thing that I do feel like y'all don't get it. Y'all just saying stuff
Hmm.
up there and just like thinking that this is gonna work, which is like why I thought it was interesting when everybody keeps saying affordable housing, affordable housing. That also tells me you don't really know what the application process is like to even qualify to even get the affordable housing. You can't just say that without knowing like the actual things that take place for this to even be actually doable for the regular person.
Yeah. And Mamdani's like, why don't we just keep people where they're at? Like
Yeah.
crazy, crazy solution, but kind of works. I'm going to jump around here on our doc. I think we've done this. We've done some heavier topics long enough. We're now going to move into heads up, where Henry has amazingly written out a lion's share of quick little hitters for us. Henry, I'm going to let you take away by talking about Ironheart before we talk about the WNBA expanding. Henry, the floor is yours.
Ironheart is basically the new Iron Man. She is a young, black, smart girl. If you watch Wakanda 2, she's in that. Her name is Riri. She has her spinoff or story or introduction into the Marvel world now out on Disney Plus. She's a Delta, by the way. And Ryan Coogler is the director. So, that's good. Support black people, black creators, and the whole team is like black women. If you go to the our podcast Instagram, I posted about it recently.
And at least I'll provide some context on the WNBA expanding. So they've talked about it for a little while. Just today, they announced that they were going to expand to three more cities, being Detroit, Cleveland, and Philadelphia. I think that is a great thing. One for the WNBA, but for more people. At least I think the so far I haven't seen truly like toxic commentary about them expanding, which is so far so good. But I do think it's great, and I think actually more people are interested in the WNBA, and I think this is what white people don't appreciate. That has to do with far greater than just Caitlin Clark. I think there's a much deeper thing that is happening in terms of like WNBA having interest, and also probably better than ever. They market themselves, I think, like no other sports league in terms of actually understanding who their audience is and who they want their audience to be. I think they do a really, really good job of that. Um, leave it at that. Moving on, so F1, there's a new movie out now with Damson Idris and with Brad Pitt. So far, I've heard early reviews that it is good, but I do think it is good to watch. Mackenzie smile. I do think it is good to watch that movie, given that it talks about F1. It's a pretty interesting thing. Brandy and Monica, Henry, take this away because I know nothing of this.
He is so funny. He just dish. Never mind. Anyway,
I'm
Brandy and
really not. I know I'm
y'all
partly
know
being
who
funny,
Brandy and
but I'm
Monica
also not.
is.
No, I know that.
Throughout the years, they've had their beef and blah blah blah, but they're now finally going on tour. Tickets are on sale now. I think just it started in like October and go all the way through
Yeah,
December, something like that.
They giving us a real press tour too.
yeah.
A
Well,
I
real traditional press tour.
I haven't seen any of that stuff, but
What? They've been like on CBS. They've been like literally like a traditional 2002 press tour when people would go to TV shows, do their spiel. Um,
I've seen like those old school like posters here in DC. Like
yeah.
they're like doing it, which I'll
They were
give them
on the
credit
late
for.
night show.
Hmm.
Yeah.
that's cool. That's good to hear. I haven't really seen much of the promotion. There was talks that like Kelly Rowland is too big
She's
to be
opening. Yeah.
the opener, which like for that era, I think makes sense for her being a solo artist. We're not talking about Destiny Child.
I'll say this. Kelly and how she responded was so graceful because this is why too many people think that they too good nowadays to do anything. Like that's why people be falling off because like Kelly Rowland is Kelly Rowland, but like I mean,
You ain't above no money.
yeah, and
That too.
but she also doesn't have like it's not like she has like a full album. Or actually, I won't even go
Mm-mm.
there. It's not. She
No, I
wasn't
no,
thinking of.
you're correct. No,
Yeah,
you're
she
correct.
doesn't
He
have all
wasn't
the
as
music.
big of a solo artist as either
Yeah,
of them.
she wasn't. And the thing also was like, damn, I wasn't even thinking about going on a tour, but you said I can go on a tour and just open and sing a few songs and collect my check. What's wrong
Man,
with that?
Keep me on the radar. Keep my checks coming in.
Yeah. And
That's
I
why
learned that
not.
from like Kiki Palmer. Kiki Palmer always, I listen
mm,
to her podcast and she always talks about
little
how
stuff.
like
Yeah.
that's how she keeps a job and stays relevant. It might not be how
Mhm.
I want it, not to say
I
Kelly
might not be the
Rowland.
headliner. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm
right.
still here. Like, and I'm still, and who really knows what that contract looked like and how that money cut? Because that's really all that really matters.
Because
Who
it
cares
is
headline
Kelly
or not
Rowland,
headline?
by the way.
I
Like,
don't think she would. I don't think she would do it if the money ain't make sense.
Yeah, if the money
She has
wasn't
the
right,
ability to
no.
say no. She has the ability to say no. But I actually love the point that you made, Mackenzie. I do think now in music, given that I think we're in like a really weird place, and that I think we're seeing less concerts. The concerts that we are seeing are like those large festivals. But I do think it's like everybody wants to sell out Barclays. It's like everybody can't do that. Like,
Yeah,
but there is, and I think this is actually why, random aside, this is why I really appreciate like someone like Victoria Monet. And she's like, hey, I can have a really small fan base, and they're always gonna support me, and that's enough. Like, I don't have to like sell out football. Everybody can't be Beyonce, but like, can you actually have a fan base that wants to see you, even if it's in a smaller venue? You should probably do that. And I don't think we have that as much anymore, where like
Coco
people
Jones
are
will
just
argue with
performing.
y'all. I feel like
She would no, she's in the same. She's in the
the
same.
newer girl. Oh,
I
if
would
y'all
agree with you
she's
on
a
that.
Grammy winner.
if
Hmm.
right, if y'all can go see her, I think it's worth it. She puts on a Howard alum, Lady
I heard
London.
her performance was good too.
Yeah,
Hmm.
opens for her. It's a great performance. I went last weekend, 2 weekends ago, something like that. If y'all can catch that, that's in the media hot black. Go catch that. And then speaking of a Coco, we got Coco Golf, which I'm gonna throw that back to Noah.
I really have. I'm not going to address whatever this craziness that this white woman said to her after she won at Wimbledon. But Coco Gauff, she's amazing. She recently won another major, being at Wimbledon. She kind of is that girl right now in tennis, which I think is good, given that we're talking about women's sports more in general. And I think Coco Gauff is leading that. And she's basically like one of the faces of New Balance now. So shout out to her. Lord knows black women are kind of like not the face of like an entire athletic apparel company, but she kind of is becoming that for New Balance. Now we're going to pivot it to the thing that I have been most solely waiting for. We're going to give her 60 to 90 seconds. Love Island, Mackenzie, please, for the love of the game of content.
Henry, do you want to set me up or at least ask me anything?
Because I'm going to be
I
Bye.
mean, like, who do you want to get voted off, and like, who?
Taylor. I hate Taylor. I
Thank
hate
you.
Taylor
Me
so much.
too.
I hate Taylor.
That
Taylor,
man's so lame, bro.
But no, let me say this to the male listeners though, for real. Why is it so hard for him to just be honest? He don't like her like that. And it's okay, but he keep trying to act like, no, I'm trying to explore you. Like, no, you're literally in love with this new girl, but you just don't want to hurt my feelings, even though you keep hurting my feelings. And then Olandria, girl.
Well, I'm glad per what I've seen of these present episodes, I'm not mad at her because she
I am mad at her. Why are you still exploring this dude and
okay,
giving him
Paul,
any
look,
time?
if you've been locked in with somebody for damn 2, 3 weeks and y'all still in the same
But even
like
the thought, even no,
environment,
no, no, stop. And that's why it's like she's delusional. They were not locked in. He was not that into he
like okay,
he
the only
barely
thing
kissed
this
her outside of challenges. Y'all was
listen,
not locked
we
in.
see what the production show us. That's one. And then for me
But
personally,
production show us,
look,
come
look, look.
on,
My
baby.
thing, the only reason I'm giving Alondria any slack, and we got to talk about Huda before we
Because she
stop,
pretty.
but and Ace and Shelly. But before I get off Alondria, my only reason I give her some slack or benefit of the doubt is because like when she was like getting ready to explore, when Jalen came in, I was like, oh, Taylor's gone. But Taylor was all up on her, like kissing her more
Like
and
a child and his mother.
a nigga with an ego, excuse me language, but yeah.
No, like a child and his mother. He
A
never was
nigga
on
with an
her. He
ego.
was never on her the same way he on Clark now.
No, I agree with you 100%. I want Taylor gone too. Bye, Taylor. Okay, now Shelly little toxic behind. She is a toxic queen. She's bad, and she knows she can play folks to the left and to the right, and that's what she's been doing, which that's the name of the game. But I feel like she waiting for Ace to step up and be like, okay, we need to lock in. And Ace too prideful to do that for whatever reason, and it's pissing me off because they the strongest couple. Because Nick and fucking Sierra, they just playing
And
with
Nick
each
had cold sores on his lip.
bro, okay, that's my thing with Love Island. Do they get tested? Because why
Yes,
the fuck
I mean, yeah, I
that
believe.
that I do know. I don't know. I barely know anything about the show, but I trust me. I've looked
they
into
get
this.
tested?
Yes, they do.
And it
Yes, they
like
do.
they need to come up with other games besides kissing.
Yeah,
That
they was doing a lot this season.
is nasty with all the kids. They need to come up with other games. It's other stuff we can do to find love. Kissing, that's
Like
nasty.
writing a love letter to each other. Like, why are y'all even
Oh,
doing all of this?
Mackenzie, what is this? What is this?
Like, why
Annabella?
are they literally the last challenge was who can make your heart be rising? You over here giving lap dances to each other. I'm like, what the hell
Mackenzie,
is
we are
going
not taking this back to the suffrage
Okay,
era,
so
okay?
was okay,
Like,
give your hot
no.
take real quick, Noah.
I've only watched this for like maybe the past week. I did not know when they were spitting milk in each other's mouths. I was like,
Oh yeah,
what
That
is
shit
this?
was so
that
nasty,
was
bro.
gross.
I knew
Gross.
like
That was
nothing
Gross.
so
about this.
nasty,
Gross.
bro. So
Ash and I
nasty.
have been on like
Gross.
a deep dive for like the last week, and then we stopped, and we were like, we did not know that this was this.
That's
This
gross.
is
Yeah, that's
Okay,
nasty.
granted, I got into it last season when Cordell and Serena were on there, and I feel like last season was more like more people were into the ship part of it, like actually trying to find
Yeah,
love.
this time it's just a lot of games, and I don't really
Yeah,
like
everybody clout chasing, trying to get their followers up.
everybody nasty.
them.
But who Huda, she wanted him. She wanted him. She wanted him. You know when you said when you vote for deportation now that it's happening, you act confused.
Where are we going
What?
with this? Hold on.
That's Huda.
Hold on.
That's Huda.
Wait, what?
Oh my God. You don't get the logical sense of that.
I don't
She's
know where
one
you're.
of those women that likes to play naive and dumb because she's pretty and nothing's too serious, but she's kind of cuckoo because she's controlling. I wouldn't say she love bomb, but she manipulate the out of she was manipulating Jeremiah crazy.
Hmm.
That's just my opinion. Yeah.
We'll talk offline about that comp. That was crazy. I'm still kind of thinking. I'm still working my brain through that. But you know what's not crazy? This episode of this podcast, which you can listen to on any of these platforms at WRGO Pod. Be sure to like, listen, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch podcasts, including YouTube, where you can see all of our videos and some fresh content that we are cooking up every so often. Once again, I'll tease this out now. We have a very, 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 very special guest coming up for our next episode. And the following episode is going to be a very special anniversary. So please be sure to tune in and stay locked in with us. Thank you as always.